so we are an FTJC production, and this is the pitch for our film Woodsman.
Okay, before we came up with our final conception of the film, we looked a lot into the research for horror films. We wanted to challenge ourselves because previously we made a comedy film which is a success of the director. We initially looked at trailers and clips of already successful horror films and to see the different options available to us. By looking at films such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Saw franchise, we could see that we wanted to head more of a slasher horror film. We threw around draft ideas to see what type of film we could make and looked at different conventions that make horrors so frightening. We saw that not only does the antagonist create an eerie atmosphere, but also fears such as that of the unknown help to create fear in the audience. And a way to provide dread in the audience is the way that the films are edited.
Right, well, we decided as we were delving into the horror genre, we'd try and challenge something that we could do, but we looked into many different ways that we could create a horror and like different storylines we could follow. We didn't want to create something that was too cliched, but also didn't want to make it so it didn't make any sense at all. Ended up coming up with the idea for this Woodsman, basically like psychopath killer with his axe, goes around and executes people, the basic of it. Yeah, obviously living in the woods, crazy guy. But it took us a while to come up with the idea and finally perfect it and get the orders done, and eventually we got down to the final idea we came up with.
We're hoping our film will be quite unique. As well as being a horror, it will focus on the killer's life, so we'll see how he became the way he is.
We've chosen that our target audience would be 15 and over, roughly between the ages of 15 and 40, because we feel that individuals under the age of 15 may be put off by the uncensored footage, such as including bad language and intense gore.
Yeah, so I will be directing this piece, Tom will be producing, Sam will be doing the camera work, and Cora will be editing it afterwards. We chose James Belcher as the executioner or the woodsman because we felt that his height and build were perfect, they were perfect for this character, but we didn't really necessarily have to have Belcher because we're going to use Enigma we're going to hide his face to create Enigma, and we felt that Amy Reynolds would be perfect because she had we felt she could pull off a quite vulnerable act. Yeah, there is no script for this piece because we felt that the actions and silence we portray our concept better than having a scripted piece.
We felt that in the majority of the scene you're going to see is mostly going to be a chase followed up by murder. There's not really much room for conversation within that. So obviously it's just to get a feel for the film originally. Yeah, well, the location's kind of self-explanatory really, the woodsman. We decided to go up to the woods up next to the Bracknell bypass. Because a lot of the time there aren't many people in there, so less chance of interruption from dog walkers or just people walking around. Also because it's so big, there's such a wide variety of locations we could use. So we felt it would be perfect for this film.
We haven't exactly chosen filming dates as of yet, but we're hoping to start filming as soon as possible. That's the end.
Okay, the camera's still running, so it might be useful while we do that. If any of you have questions first of all, then I'm sure Miss Scott and I will have a couple of questions for you as well. Bear in mind, as you answer these questions though, that what you're going to put on the camera potentially is still evidence that you can use for planning and research. So try and answer the questions as coherently as you can. Connor?
As you said, if you're shooting down a Bracknell bypass, it's absolutely pitch black at night, so how are you supposed to get light?
We're not planning on doing it at night as such, more like kind of towards is it dusk? So as it's getting dark but not quite dark, is it obviously, because then we wouldn't be able to see and that'd be very pointless filming. So we've got that out. We've also, we haven't set the filming dates yet, we want to try and do it days in a row if we can, because obviously with the changing weather and winter we don't want to risk having it snow one day and then not the other. It'd be a bit ridiculous.
Good. Any other questions for them? Scott, do you want to?
Yeah. You mentioned you having no script. You talked about silence briefly, or it was mentioned on your PowerPoint. Have you thought about music? Will there be music, sound effects?
Yeah, we've had a brief think of that, and if we can find the right effects like slow synth build-ups, like very deep bass sounds leading up to it, then we might add them in. But if we can't, then we'll use the use of sounds, or maybe just the sounds of the woods itself.
Okay, so you tend it to be quite a quiet
Yeah.
piece. Okay.
You said you're conscious you don't want to become too cliche. You called your piece The Woodsman, and it. I'm unclear what the action of the piece is. It's literally just a chase scene.
Yeah.
And what does that culminate in?
Well, we thought about, when we were coming up with the scene, we thought about the whole idea of what the big picture of the film would be. This would be like a lead-in to the film, and it would obviously flash back to show what the events that happened to lead up to it. But we kind of decided that with the chase scene, build up tension, it would gain interest, gain your...
So you're looking at creating enigma just through that chase scene on its own.
Yeah.
You said that you want to use Broadmoor in the woods up there. I think you need to be a little bit more specific about your location, because I think you need to know exactly where you're going to film and what you're going to do. You've classified your film as a 15. Are you 100% certain, making a horror film, that you can work within the criteria of a 15?
Well, obviously due to lack of special effects we could potentially use, we couldn't really make a film that could be an 18 as such.
What about the rest of the film, though?
The rest of the film, I suppose, if we were to carry it out as a full-length film, it would probably get a lot more detail and possibly more gory, so it could be potentially raised to an 18.
Okay. Just make sure you justify the fact that you want to classify it as a 15, because horror films, proper horror films, tend not to be 15 rated, okay? Just check that out. Is there any blood in your film? Is there any...
Not like major deaths, but we have a few hints of blood to build up to the tensions.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Well done. Give me a clap.